Good, happy Wednesday evening, January 22, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this evening edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We are broadcasting live here in the Riley King Network, Washington, D.C. studio this evening. We have a lot of news to get to this evening, so let's begin. First up, Trump's trial opens on fast track. Dems argue for removal. Let's take a listen to that video from 7 News, WHDH, Boston.
Turning now to the impeachment trial of President Donald J. Trump. Congress listening to those opening arguments in the trial today. Those arguments happening right now. Here's a live look at the Senate floor for you as we speak. Impeachment managers making their case on why the Senate must hold the president accountable.
And now the president's attorney is also responding. Dan Housley live in Washington with all the big developments from today. Well, Ryan and Johnny Young, Congressman Jerry Nadler now taking the baton from the lead House impeachment manager Adam Schiff, who is talking for a couple of hours this afternoon as the Democrats start 24 hours of argument on the Senate floor.
We are here today in this hallowed chamber, undertaking this solemn action for only the third time in history.
Congressman Adam Schiff leading the way, laying out the case to remove President Trump from office.
President Trump solicited foreign interference in our democratic elections, abusing the power of his office to seek help from abroad to improve his re-election prospects at home. And when he was caught, he used the powers of that office to obstruct the investigation into his own misconduct.
House Democrats will spend 24 hours over the next 3 days detailing their case, while 100 senators sit quietly, taking it all in so they can pass judgment. No electronics, no talking to their neighbors, in sessions lasting into the night.
What was it like to sit there for so long?
It's like sitting on a tractor, man.
Democrats say President Trump is gloating that Republicans kept them from bolstering their case with more witnesses and more evidence. Pointing to this comment, they say shows the president reveling in his own obstruction before leaving the World Economic Forum in Switzerland.
I thought our team did a very good job, but honestly, we have all the material. They don't have the material.
President Trump said he'd like to see more witnesses, including his former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. But the president also hinted why the White House might want to block Bolton.
What happens if he reveals what I think about a certain leader and it's not very positive and that I have to deal on behalf of the country? It's going to be very hard. It's going to make the job very hard. He knows other things, and I don't know if we left on the best of terms. I would say probably not.
And the president's defense team won't get a chance to make their argument until Saturday, but the president's personal lawyer, Jay Sekulow, stopped in a Capitol hallway just a few moments ago and talked to reporters about what he thought of the Democrats' case so far and how his team might respond.
He just went through 2.5 hours of laying out his case to go with the 11 hours of laying out the case last night. Now, unless he's making it up, it seems like he's got a lot of information, so proceed with your case. The more they do this, 2.5-hour events at a time, it undercuts their entire argument. But you know what? That's going to be ultimately for the United States Senate to decide.
And President Trump reacting to the testimony so far as well, tweeting simply 2 words, no pressure. An apparent reference, we would think, to his insistence that there was no pressure in his phone call with the Ukrainian president. We're live on Capitol Hill. Dan Housley, 7 News.
Dan, thank you. And today's opening arguments will continue now for several more hours today and then likely into tomorrow, with each side getting that 24 hours over 3 days to lay out their case. So we want to welcome in now our Constitution.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. If you want to watch the rest of that video, we will have a link for you on the Riley King Network Facebook page after this broadcast. And, you can head over to the Riley King Network Facebook page right now and watch the impeachment trial as it is going on. We have a live stream of the impeachment trial happening, and we will show you that right now. So if you want to watch that impeachment trial right now, just head over to the Riley King Network Facebook page and click on that. And it is from ABC News Live, the live stream of the impeachment trial. So if you want to watch that right now, feel free to. And later on this evening, I will be doing a special report of the impeachment trial later on this evening. Tulsi Gabbard files defamation lawsuit against Hillary Clinton. Gabbard seeking 2020 Democratic presidential nomination. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
Meanwhile, Gabbard is suing 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton for defamation. The suit claiming that Clinton tried to derail Gabbard's campaign in October when she said Russia was grooming a candidate. Clinton did not mention Gabbard by name, and she was one of 5 women in the race at the time. Gabbard is seeking damages at an injunction banning the statement from being published ever again.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Concord Homeless Shelter puts out call for volunteers. Cold weather puts strain on shelter resources. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
The greed and corruption undermining our democracy is bigger than one man. And so is the solution. We will make billionaires pay their fair share, provide better wages, and equal pay for women.
There are 40 beds inside the Concord Homeless Shelter, and these cold nights, most of them are filled. The funding for the shelter comes from federal, state, and local fundraising, but that's still not enough.
And we are able to operate this shelter on a limited budget because of all of the volunteers that make it possible.
While there is paid staff on site, the volunteers are essential.
So we have a paid overnight staff person who's here the entire time that the shelter's open, but that's just one person, and they really need the support of 2 or 3 other volunteers during the different shifts.
And right now, they're running short. Grow says you don't need to spend the night in the shelter.
You could work the check-in shift, which is from about 6:15 till 8 or 9 at night, or you could come in early in the morning and help with the check-out.
And the executive director says what you learn at the shelter might surprise you.
We're all human beings. We all share so many things in common, and these are people who are on hard times, but they're not so different from me or you or anyone else who has a home.
If you think you might like to volunteer, you can do that by going to the organization's website at concordhomeless.org. In Concord, Ray Brewer, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Missing Attleboro woman's body found. Take a look at this photo right here. This woman missing. Her body has been found. An Attleboro woman who had been reported missing earlier this week has been found dead, police said. The missing woman, 44, was reported missing Monday. Police said her body was found in the backyard of 32 Mary Street on Tuesday by residents of the home. Police said they had been searching for this missing woman after her longtime boyfriend called police Monday out of concern for her well-being. Police said foul play is not suspected at this time. Bill calls for changes in Maine's Dig Safe law in response to Farmington explosion. Maine lawmakers are considering a bill that would make changes to the state's Dig Safe law in response to last year's deadly explosion in Farmington. The bill would add liquefied propane gas lines to the law. Dig Safe law prohibits digging around certain underground utility lines. In Maine, LP lines are currently not on the prohibited list, bill sponsor Rep. Seth Barry said. It's unfortunate that we have not already passed a bill to protect our LP lines. If we had, the devastating explosion in Farmington could have been avoided. We must take action now to ensure the safety of Mainers and to prevent an event like this from happening in our state. Again, Barry said. Barry said provisions attempts to add LP lines to Maine's Dig Safe law did not pass in legislature. Those visions of the bill exempt smaller LP things including the size of the tank in Farmington. Barry said his bill does not include an exemption. Rep. Scott Lander of Farmington and Senator Russell Black of Wilton are co-sponsors of the bill. Since the event, we have come together to support each other and to rebuild. Passing laws like this will remind our town that we are not alone and that the state is working to protect us and prevent future tragedies, Lander said. I was very surprised to find that the type of buried line one would most want to have protected by Dig Safe is not covered by the program, especially with the number of people in more rural areas of Maine who use LP as a fuel, Black said. Propane companies urge the change adds a vast responsibility to them. This exemption of Dig Safe rule to include propane facilities and increase finance costs, Maine business and our customers, and, in our opinion, does not necessarily protect public safety. Dead River Company Safety Manager Mark Anderson said. Investigators determined that a leak in propane line caused the explosion at the LEAP Inc. building in September that killed Captain Michael Bell and injured 7 others. Bell's family testified in favor of the bill during a public hearing on Tuesday. The investigation into what caused the leak in the lines continues. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market closed for this Wednesday evening. And here's a look at that U.S. stock market for all of you for this Wednesday evening. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the red and went down. Your Nasdaq closed in the red and in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed in the green and went up. Oil closed in the red and went down. US 10-year closed flat. Euro/USD closed flat. And VIX closed in the green and went up. Stocks close little changed. IBM leads tech shares higher. Stocks ended a violet session after the flat line on Wednesday, despite strong gains from IBM that lifted the overall technology sector. First case of coronavirus confirmed in the U.S. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know. A Washington state resident fell ill after returning from Wuhan, China, where the outbreak began. Officials now say more than 400 people have been sickened and 9 people have died. The World Health Organization is holding an emergency meeting right now. Kana Whitworth is in Seattle, has the latest for us. Good morning, Kana.
Hey, Robin, good morning. So that patient is a man in his 30s. He is in the hospital here behind me. Now, officials are describing his condition as satisfactory, but he will remain in isolation for at least the next couple of days. They will continue to monitor him, as well as the healthcare providers and patients he came into contact with after testing positive for the coronavirus. The first case of the deadly Chinese coronavirus making its way to the U.S., a Washington state man testing positive for the deadly virus. According to the CDC, the man in his 30s flew home to Seattle last Wednesday, infected but not yet symptomatic. According to officials, shortly after arriving in Seattle, he began feeling ill and reached out to his healthcare provider on Sunday. 24 hours later, his diagnosis was confirmed by the CDC. The man entering the country before federal health officials began screening travelers from the city of Wuhan, one of the busiest transportation hubs in central China, and where the outbreak began.
This is certainly not a moment for panic or high anxiety. It is a moment for vigilance.
This as some 3 billion trips are expected to be made by Chinese citizens heading home to celebrate the Lunar New Year Spring Festival. A reported 7 million Chinese tourists expected to travel abroad. Chinese officials taking every precaution to contain the virus. Workers outside of the local hospital in biosuits. Officials screening travelers as they enter and leave the airport. Our Bob Woodruff is here, walking through Wuhan Airport, wearing a 3-ply surgical mask to limit his exposure to the virus.
The city is now controlling people going in and out of the city. Then also local tourist groups are being banned from leaving. The government does not want this infection to leave.
Screenings now expanding to 5 U.S. airports, including Chicago and Atlanta. And anyone hoping to enter the U.S. from Wuhan must do so through one of those locations. So right now the CDC is retracing this Washington man's steps. They say he actually did not visit that fish and meat market in Wuhan where they believe this virus originated. And also, Michael, they're really crediting this man for quickly alerting doctors once he became symptomatic.
All right, thank you so much, Kana. And now we're going to bring in Dr. Jennifer Ashton, answer a few questions that we may have. And Doc, there's so many questions about transmission of the virus.
Right.
We did human to human. Yesterday we talked about that. What more do we know at this point?
Well, again, what we know is that it's spreading. That's not really a surprise. What we don't know is a lot about this virus. We don't know its incubation period. We don't really know the route of transmission. It is a coronavirus, which normally spreads via respiratory droplets, but we don't know the specifics on this new one. We don't know how contagious it is, which means what percentage of people exposed will actually get sick. And we don't know the severity of the illness. How many will go on to develop mild symptoms, things like pneumonia requiring hospitalizations, and we certainly don't know the fatality rate yet.
And at this time, what had been done to protect the public here in the U.S.?
A lot being done, and we have to emphasize, Michael, a lot of this has been prepped and primed by the response of not only the CDC, but the World Health Organization in response to SARS. So we know how to act more quickly, more efficiently. Here in this country, as we heard, flights coming from Wuhan will only be allowed to land at certain airports where this screening can take place. Passengers will then be screened, and if sick, they will be isolated. If asymptomatic, they'll be given very important educational materials. As Kana said, healthcare providers urged to screen, and new testing methods being gotten out there by the CDC so we can identify these cases more quickly.
All right, Doc. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for my evening newscast right here on the Riley King Network. Thank you for watching the Riley King newscast. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday evening, and I'll see you back here in a little bit for a news report. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for another newscast. Good night and bye, everyone.